What's up, Liron here. In today's episode of The Paint Show, we'll be looking at Madder Lake Red Light by St. Petersburg White Nights. So this is another White Nights paint, and I'm really excited because so far I loved each and every one of those. And I've had this pen for a while now and I haven't opened it up. I will give you an up-close look soon. I know the iPhone has problems with focusing, but this is a very interesting paint that has good potential for me personally. It is close to a primary color, so a red. It has a bit of a bluish bias. So a bit of a cooler red. It has good light fastness. From what I've seen, the pigment, which is PR 187, pigment red 187, we're going to talk more about that in just a moment, has 2 out of 4 light fastness. Now they say it's 3 stars, meaning the best light fastness. So I think it should be good. In addition to that, it's also transparent. So if you love transparency, this could be an interesting paint to check out. I originally got it because it was transparent and because I was just trying to get primary colors. So with that being said, let's move on to the table and I'm gonna show you what it looks like. We're gonna try mixing it, and who knows, maybe this could turn into a staple of mine when it comes to White Nights St. Petersburg, solely because it has a lot of potential to be a good core color. One thing I will look for with this one is if it has a large range of values, okay? That's one important thing for me personally. Not everyone cares about that, but I do care about it. So if it does also have good range of values, I may be really interested in this one. So let's get started and I'm gonna show you what it looks like. So I thought I'd give you an up-close look at this pen. I love the packaging of White Nights. And also read to you some of what I found online about this paint in a really good website called ArtIsCreation. So pigment red 187, that's permanent pink FL. Other names that are used for it are azoalizarin, azoic alizarin, Carl's crimson, pigment red, transparent red, nephthol red, permanent pink, pigment red. So it has a lot of different names. It is made of a synthetic organic substance. It is monoazobarium salt. It is described as a bright or deep bluish red. And what it says here, at least, is on a scale of transparency, it has 4 out of 4, I believe. So that's the most transparent. Then it's number 2 out of 4 for light fastness. So now what we're gonna do is open it up. So this is the price, by the way, in Israeli shekels. So divide that by 3.6 or 3.7, you get the price in US dollars. And I'm never good at opening these gracefully, so I'm just gonna go for it. Here we go, and let's see what this looks like. Some of the older pens I've had had a lot of the powder of the paint fall off. Let's see if here is going to be the case as well. So as you can see, it's quite sticky, but let's hope it works. And I'm not left with a ton of the wrapping on the paint itself. So here we go. Yeah, just a bit of it here and there. We're gonna get rid of it really, really soon. So now let's get started and test this one out. So let's have a look at this one, shall we? I have it here, taped it down to my board. And let's start with just a regular kind of wash. It is beautiful and it's very vibrant. Some of my water is contaminated, but we're gonna get rid of that in no time. So this is one of the types of reds that I find most useful. I think just by the initial appearance, okay, without taking into consideration the characteristics. It can get quite dark. It's sort of a red magenta, so it can probably mix a huge variety of paints. This is a lovely paint, and it is a bit bluish. I can understand what they say by that. There is a bit of a blueness to it. You can see it mainly in its lighter form, but also in the darker form. Let's see how it behaves wet and wet, because that really changes from one color to another. The way they spread out will depend on the pigment and the binder and all sorts of other elements that compose the pen. And actually, I've been looking for a good red like this. So I may get the tube. If I can find it here, I may try and get its tube. Because pens feel temporary to me, I don't know why. I must get a tube to feel really good about myself. Let's add a bit of water just to see what happens. So it does spread out pretty nicely. Reminds me a bit of how, which one was it? I think the Venetia red that I played around with reminds me a bit of how that handled here. Let's get rid of that little piece of, I don't know, wrapping. So this is what you got. It's a beautiful color. I think it will be useful. We'll check it out now with the mixing. It has good properties from my initial impression. Can get quite dark. It is light fast. It is a beautiful red. Kind of reminds me of Daniel Smith's. Let's do some dry brushing here. Kind of reminds me of Daniel Smith's alizarin crimson that's not permanent. So it has that kind of a beauty to it. The quality of beauty, which I think is important for a color that may be used as a staple in your palette. Sometimes I just love to play around with the paint a bit, see what happens when if I just inject some water onto the dry brush, just to let it play around a bit. Helps you feel the paint and get a feel for it. And yeah, so far this one is really terrific. Let's see what it looks like when it is mixed with blues and all sorts of different colors. So you can't see much of the palette on the right, but it doesn't matter as much. Matter, get it? So, bad jokes day. Let's start with phthalo. That was actually pretty good. Doesn't matter, like red. So a bit of phthalo blue, and then a bit of the red with it. So it creates this nice purpley violet, and it doesn't neutralize, which is great. It doesn't neutralize as much as some of the other reds I've been using lately. For example, if we do the same here with Parylene, you'll get a very metallic gray. Let me show you. See, this neutralizes a little more, gets a little more dull. But this kind of keeps its vibrancy, which is nice. Let's try it out with some nickel azo yellow here. Some very contaminated nickel azo yellow, and we get what appears to be, oh sorry, touch the Parylene, what appears to be maybe a bit of a warm red, a bit of a cadmium. Not really a cadmium, but close enough. Which is what's so good about these magentas. You can just mix the warm red you want with them. It's a bit hard, or rather impossible, to get from a warm Parylene or cadmium red into a cool pink red, but it is possible the other way around, at least in my experience. Maybe you've experienced something different. But I love the way it looks. Let's try and break it down individually. So a bit of yellow here. I just want to see them side by side. And then a bit of red there. So beautiful. Now let's try, what else have we not tried yet? I'm gonna try mixing it with some sap green. Because with the green it's supposed to neutralize. The question is just how much and what the bias is gonna be like. So the green has yellow, this red has a bit of blue in it, so we get a muted mix. Very muted mix, as with all reds and greens, so this is kind of what we get. Maybe even has a bit of an orange tint to it, I don't know, but it looks good. Let's try mixing it with French Ultramarine this time, okay? So we have a warm biased blue and a cool biased red. Let's see what we get out of that. It's probably not going to be too different to the mix with the phthalo, but it does have a bit of, you see, it is a bit more violet, I guess. It appears to be that way. A little more vibrant and violet. But this is pretty much it, I think. This gives us a good understanding of what the paint looks like. And it's interesting to test it out with different values. So for example, if I go very light, what kind of orange I'll get, but you'll have to get it in order to really do all of these experimentations. And the best way to experiment is actually using a painting process, which I'm gonna do soon. I'm gonna go out soon and paint outside, and I may take this one with me because it's so neat. So in any case, this is it. I hope you enjoyed this one, and now let's wrap it up. So here we go, Meadow Lake Red Light by St. Petersburg's White Nights. Beautiful paint. I'm very happy with the way it looks, the way it mixes, and I think it's going to be a very useful one because when you have magenta and yellow, it's easy to mix the more cadmium looking reds, but from a cadmium it's a bit hard to jump back to a more pinkish kind of red, because all you can do is really add water, and sometimes that's not enough, or maybe a bit of yellow, but it doesn't always work that way. So I think this one's really useful, and magenta together with cyan and a yellow, probably a lemony yellow, but I hate them. Yeah, and it is also transparent. It has good light fastness, so this is a good one to have as a core paint if you're like me and you like the limited palette and you like simplifying the process for yourself. So in any case, I want to thank you so much for joining me in this episode of The Paint Show. I know I've been posting less and fewer of these, but that's because I have other interests, and I will probably go back to doing more in the future. So don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and also subscribe and comment down below if there's any other paint or anything else you want me to talk about. This really helps. The commenting, the likes, the subscribing. This really helps to tell YouTube that this video is worth watching, and then it helps get it to more people, and I'm trying to grow. So thank you so much, and I will see you again in another episode and in another vid real soon.